Now, I do like a good steak, and I must admit, I don't eat anywhere near as much as I used to. I was brought up on red meat, mainly lamb, I must admit. But I was brought up on red meat. We had lamb 3 times a day. And I'm not exaggerating, really. It was dirt cheap in New Zealand when I was a kid. Anyway, the point of the story is I've got a beautiful piece of porterhouse here, which I've trimmed of all fat, and I've taken it out of the fridge, obviously, for half an hour first of all. And I'm going to make my favourite butter. I actually saw Neil Perry recently talking about his favourite steak butter, which was Café de Paris, which I do love, may I say. But this is, I think, my absolute favourite. And it's a roasted capsicum and an anchovy butter. Now, don't be scared off by the anchovies. Seriously, you won't hardly notice them. They just add that little bit of oomph to the dish. You know, they add a little bit of the salt content and things like that. It's like people who say, oh, I hate anchovies. Then they go and order a pizza with the lot, which is full of anchovies. So I've got 3 or 4 pieces of roasted capsicum, which you just buy from the deli, a few anchovies and a bit of their oil, some chopped parsley, some garlic to go in it as well. And then we just whiz that up in our little food processor. And to that we then add some soft butter. Now I'm using a cultivated butter. I think my favourite Australian one in this style is the Gurgau, which seems to have disappeared. I can't buy it anymore. Well, my supermarkets don't have it, which is a shame because I think it's a bloody good butter. Here I am using, as I said, a cultivated one which has a slight sourness to it, which is what I like. And I'm making a decent amount of butter because what I then do, I then wrap some up in foil and put it in the freezer for the next time that I want to cook my favourite steak. Now that's looking good, so we'll just put that to the side. We'll come back and put it in the foil later, because first of all what I want to do is do a little bit of a mix here. Now this is a variation on Lyonnaise potatoes. Now Lyonnaise potato surprisingly comes from Lyon, and basically it is potatoes which are grilled or barbecued or sauteed, you know, but nice and crispy with onion. Now I've had them in Lyon and they are beautiful. Love them. Absolutely adore them. But I'm not in Lyon and I'm doing my variation, aren't I? So I've got some capsicum, because I had some leftover capsicum. I've got some mushrooms. And all I'm doing is starting the saute process. There's a little bit of garlic in there as well, as you know. And I did it in olive oil, but I'll put a dollop of butter at some stage. Don't put too much butter because we're having butter on our steak, aren't we? But just start the cooking process. Actually, I remember when I had Lyonnaise potatoes and they served, I reckon, enough for 100 people at a restaurant called Lion de Lyon. Guess where it is? It's in Lyon, which is one of the great eating capitals of the world. It's where Paul Bocuse had his famous restaurant. And it's not the only restaurant. Daniel A. Denis, I always remember being wonderful. And certainly Lion de Lyon, which used every part of the beast. So you went there and you had a salad Lyonnaise, and it had bits and pieces that you didn't actually ask what they were, because if you asked what they were, they might tell you. Sometimes you don't want to know. Anyway, stop chatting. We'll just put that to the side and we'll start thinking about our steak. Now I've got my steak, as I said. Take it out half an hour before you want to cook it. Salt and pepper. Decent amount of both, and a little bit of olive oil. And make sure, if you're doing it inside like I am, that you have your smoke alarm turned off, because it does smoke. And to that we will then add some potatoes. Now I've boiled these potatoes, overcooked them a bit. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it means that they will grill faster and they get a better flavour. So you don't want them al dente. We're not talking about pasta here. So we'll throw this potato, or these potatoes, which I've cut in half, and as you saw me, I've oiled them, and we'll throw those on the grill as well. Obviously you can do it in the barbecue outside. That's if your neighbours are not too keen on the amount of smoke that's going through the place. And always remember, just lift that up just to make sure it doesn't stick, which it's not doing. And keep an eye on the potatoes because they will cook reasonably rapidly. Now, just while that's happening, let's have a little taste of our butter. I don't think it needs any salt. I didn't put, because it's got the anchovy, I didn't put any salt in it, did I? No, I didn't. But I don't think it needs any. That's why I didn't put it in. Let's have a little taste. Guys, that is bloody fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I'm as biased as hell, but forget it, Mr. Perry. This is better than your Cafe de Paris. Actually, the best Cafe de Paris butter I ever had was done by Damien Pignolet at his restaurant. Now, what was his restaurant called? I'm trying to think. Ooh, Bistro Moncourt in Sydney. And he made the most beautiful Cafe de Paris butter. I think he had about 9,000 ingredients in it. Well, pretty bloody close. All right, that steak, cook it to your desired degree. As one of my dear mates used to say to me, you know, I'd go into a field and bite my steak off. Oh, shut up, Ian, don't do dirty jokes like that. This is not the thing that we should be doing. But I do like the steak rare. I think you get the picture. So keep on with those potatoes, because what we will do is we'll put that, once they've got some nice colour, we'll put that in with the other mix and just finish that off. And do remember, you need to rest your steak. Oh, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, something like that. Nice warm spot. You know, don't get all excited and wrap it. When people wrap them up, I think to myself, you're wrapping it up and all you're doing is continuing the cooking process. So we're not doing that. Steak to the desired degree. I love that butter. I used to do it at Memories of the Mediterranean. I remember years ago, we used to put it on half oysters and stick it under the grill very briefly. It was wonderful. I know I'm a great fan of oysters just au natural, but they weren't too bloody bad when they were grilled with that. All right, my steak's looking good. The veggies, I've thrown the potatoes in. They're looking good. Steak. People often liked the idea of cutting it a little bit. I don't worry. But that's up to you guys. Or you can serve it whole. I do love potatoes. I really do. I think it's my favourite veggie. Actually, I remember the mad Frank Zappa from the Grateful Dead being asked what his favourite vegetable was. And he said tobacco. That was quite good, apart from the fact that I am not a smoker, never have been, never will be. I think if I was asked, I would say potatoes. So that's my variation on Pommes Lyonnaise. I think Leon from Leon the Leon would maybe not be too happy. He would say, what are those capsicums and mushrooms doing in my Lyonnaise potato? That's how he talks. No, he doesn't. I just made that up. A little bit of parsley on the top. With something that special, we need a special wine. Now what I've got here is a Petit Syrah from Caravan. Now I saw in the Australian newspaper they did a vote of their customers of their favourite red wine of the year, and that was it. So I'm pulling out all the bells and whistles for you today, kids. Petit Syrah is actually, well, used to be called De Riff, which was grown a lot in Rutherglen region in South East Australia. And it was a blend of Shiraz and some obscure, and I can't remember the name, some obscure variety from the south of France. And it was done by a doctor, I think Francois De Riff, and he was so big-headed he named the wine after himself. But it really is a Petit Syrah. Oh, that's good. I can see why it's won all the prizes. So I've done you proud, guys. I've done my favourite butter. I've done a great red wine to go with it. That really is bloody special, that wine. So, aren't I nice to you? Do enjoy. Guys, to show your support for my channel and to keep in the loop, subscribe. It's easy to do, and don't forget, it's free. Okay, cheers.